All right, so so one, two, three. Well, welcome everybody. Today I have John Carset, founder and CEO of LevelUp Leads, with us today. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Dean. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so you're maybe you could tell us a little about your background and what LevelUp Leads does.
Sure, I'll keep it brief. I've been working remotely for the past 10 years in the lead generation space, and just doing everything from starting from the beginning, from hunting leads on my own to full sales cycle to closing deals. Got some experience in a few lead gen agencies, and about 3 years ago, I started my company, actually close to four now, LevelUp Leads. And so what we do is we're a sales development and appointment setting agency. So companies will hire us to run outbound campaigns for them, set up appointments so their sales reps have new selling opportunities.
Yeah, great. Well, certainly technology, data, and AI has really impacted sales and marketing motions so much over the last decade, and now with the AI or the last year or two, the advances. Like, can you share like some of the things that how you're leveraging technology in your outbound campaigns?
Yeah, so we don't really have any proprietary software ourselves. We have this dashboard, but not really using any AI or anything there. It's more so just reporting. But what we do is we use a lot of different tools out on the market to help us with our outreach. So anything from our dialer, for example, we use a tool called Orem. They will transcribe our calls. They'll give us AI notes. We actually have another tool called Ethereum that will plug into our dialer, and that also is AI generated. What that does is it allows us to set up bots, like practice bots, before we actually start calling for our clients, so we're not burning through our clients or getting that practice in real time. We can get it ahead of time before we start making calls. Then it also analyzes the live calls and it'll give you feedback. So internally, I'm just speaking on the dialing aspect, but internally we have 27 SDRs, sales development representatives. There's no way with the amount of calls we do that our SDR manager could possibly go through and understand which calls to analyze and which ones not to. So the AI actually helps him understand where he needs to focus. So based on that, he gets a report of the calls, and then he can kind of from there go and dive in and know which calls to analyze and then coach the SDRs on. That's just one aspect of AI, but it's extremely helpful. Otherwise, we might need to hire another person or two.
And what have you learned? Like, what are some like? It's an art to get meetings. I mean, it's so hard today. Even with all the marketing spend and multi-channel, it's like people just ghost you. It's so hard to actually get someone live and get a meeting. So what's some of, I mean, without sharing your secret sauce, but like what are some of the things how you're able to, get success and get meetings for your clients?
Yeah, right now the phones are working the best. Most of the channels we run though, are we'll do email outreach, we'll do LinkedIn outreach, and cold calling. Cold calling's working the best. It's been around since I've been alive. It's not going away, at least in the United States. It's an open game, and so what's beneficial there is, an email is a lot easier to ignore. It's in LinkedIn message is a lot easier to ignore. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it's become more challenging as the space has become more crowded. But on the phones, I get you on a call. You might not know it's what the call's about. You may be the teacher or the principal at your school. It may be your car's ready at the auto shop, or it may be, hey, it's me calling to try to sell you something. But the point is that if I'm asking good questions that are relevant to you and your role, you're likely going to answer. You may have a solution in place, but at least we can learn on the fly and understand, oh, okay, this person is the right contact at this company. They're not the decision maker. And it's real-time feedback, even if it's not turned into a meeting. And that is really helpful in terms of adjusting our campaigns moving forward, whether it be the script or the targeting. As for your main question is how do we actually set up the meetings? Again, it's going back to asking the right questions, understanding the pain points of our RCP, the ideal customer profile, and then piquing enough interest that they want to set up a call. Because what we're doing is we're not selling on our calls. We're piquing their interest so we can set up the calls for our clients, because they're the professionals, right? That we want them going into detail and answering those questions. not us. So we're trained enough to speak on the product or service and then pique interest so we can set up those meetings.
And what are some of like the metrics you track and best practices around the different services you offer?
So since we work with a wide range of companies, I mean, I'm talking startups with typically funded startups, but startups with 10, 15 people, all the way up to publicly traded companies that are on the New York Stock Exchange and they're making billions. So like the range of companies is it's very vast. And then also each company will measure success differently. Typically it has to do with their deal size. So if company A has a deal size of, let's say, 15 or 20,000, company B has a deal size of 1 million, the KPIs are just drastically different. So it's about setting up those success metrics ahead of time with each individual company. So I can't answer your question directly just because it varies so much.
Yeah. And what like your own SDRs, do you have a metric where they have to make so many calls before they get a meeting, or that varies as well?
Yeah. So with each client we work with, there's a deliverable of, hey, we're going to do X amount of output, whether, depending on the channel, calls, emails, LinkedIn messages. But the end goal is getting the meetings, right? We can't guarantee the meetings. It's just way too difficult across the board. But what we can guarantee is the output. And then at the end of the day, we have to be getting our clients the meetings so they can make selling up, make more sales. So
Yeah,
that's the goal, is the
yeah.
meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I've been running our software company for 35 years, and it's not easy. I mean, we spend so much money and time in marketing and sales, and it's just not easy. And it seems to be getting harder and harder, even with all the tech every day.
It's constantly evolving, right? What worked a few years ago isn't necessarily working today. So you kind of always have to be testing, and there's new tools coming into the market that are making things easier. So it's like you just can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, which makes it challenging. And now it's also very crowded. There's more and more competition.
And so you're an entrepreneur, and you started your company, which is awesome. Like, what are some of like the big lessons you've learned since I think you're 5 years old now, 4 years old?
Oh yeah, approaching 4.
Yeah, yeah. So like, what are some of the like things that lessons you learned that you might want to share?
So the biggest one would be don't get stuck in your ways. You may have a vision of starting a company one way, but it's just not, in almost most cases, it's just not going to end up evolving how you expected or starting, right? You have to be open to change. And if I didn't do that, I'd probably have to shut down the company several years ago. So you have to understand and listen to your customers. They typically will give you ideas like, oh, you want what would be great is if you included that, or if you did this. I could, we'd spend a lot more money if you could do that. And so like you start listening, you're like, okay, yeah, why? Yeah, we should do that. And so we evolved and started offering more channels, started raising our prices, started hiring better, more qualified SDRs, and it's made a huge difference. And if I was stuck in my ways and said, no, this is how we're going to do it, I think we would have failed by now.
Yeah, I was like doing a little homework before our interview, and I read your website, and yeah, you have someone on your team, molecular biology, degree in medicine, teacher. And it was kind of interesting, which I thought were like these growth-minded people, and kind of unique. And now they're working with you. So, like, what do you look for or how do you go about testing for the like soft skills, hard skills? Because like hiring is so hard, and like the success of all of our businesses is how we hire and kind of nurture and coach and our team. So any thoughts around that?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've had your company for 35 years, I can only imagine the difficulties and ups and downs you've had with hiring. Um, I've found it to be very difficult. I think you think it's easy, but it's not. You think you hire the right person, they start, and then all of a sudden, like things you thought they had buttoned up, they don't. So yeah, I've been humbled in that sense. What we look for though is in a sales, like I'll just use one role specifically, a sales development representative, which is the bulk of our business. That is a tricky one because you don't necessarily need a lot of experience to be good at the job. You need to have some grit, you need to be motivated. Oftentimes money plays a big factor, which is totally acceptable. They want to make more money. They have a family, wife, maybe they're in debt. They have things that they need to make this money for. And so you want someone that has had to overcome life challenges. So when it comes to picking up the phone and making phone calls, it doesn't seem all that daunting. That's what we look for, those types of stories. And we have people on our team that are some of our top reps that don't have a lot of experience previously doing
And
sales development.
and their characteristics, you would say, is that they have a lot of grit. They can stay optimistic and just keep making those outbound calls. How would you summarize that? Like for
Yeah, I mean,
your
so
top SDRs.
yeah, so like you're in this space, you're facing rejection a lot, right? So I'll just make the numbers easy. Let's say you talk to 100 people, you might get 97 no's. So you need to really be like counting those small wins every day and not let it get not let you like get like down your energy or your momentum. Like you just need to really focus on those small wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's like being an entrepreneur. I mean, it's not easy to be an entrepreneur. There's so much there's so much reward and also so much pain, and even when you're successful it never stops. And so it's kind of interesting that the characteristics of an SDR can also talk like an entrepreneur. You need to just have that grit and long-term focus.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I'm sure you have lots of stories, and we could talk for a while. Having run your company for many years, but it's like all the problems filter up your way, and even like the more success you have, that's fine. It's great. It's actually that you're achieving your goals, but then another set of problems come. So it's
Yep.
kind of like a constant. It never ends, really.
You have to love it to stay in it. So
Yeah.
like I'm not sure how much you follow like in our business, we have to really keep up with AI. We're building on AI. We build developer tools and B2B tools, and but a lot of hype out there too. It's just amazing that you have CEOs of the biggest tech companies kind of talking at a level that's not real, but yet there's such innovations. So recently, OpenAI was talking about, oh, well, you can train the AI to make, talk on the phone, go do outbound and, have conversations and achieve goals and tasks. Like, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think that's the future of your SDRs? Do you think it's a piece of it? Like, do you have any point of view there?
Yeah. Well, luckily, using AI for outbound right now is illegal in the United States. So we got that going for us.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
So, but there is a whole nother story to that is if they're opted in, let's say they click on an ad, they subscribe to your newsletter, they call inbound, that's different. And that's where we see AI actually starting to become more and more popular. We have a client that they're basically replacing inbound call centers. They're using AI, and it's so advanced that they're able to handle calls and schedule appointments. And some of the benefits there is like you may have a call center and then there's peak hours, and then all of a sudden you need to like figure out how do you staff during high call, like I don't know, maybe it's like during Christmas season or something like that, that you're going to have a higher call volume, whereas the AI doesn't, you don't need to do anything. It will just handle it itself. So it's getting very interesting, but I do think there's like a lot of AI talk out there. I still think it has a little ways to go,
Yep.
especially on when it comes to us like actually speaking. You'll see it a lot more in like handling emails and things like that. But I still think you need to have a human behind it, adjusting things, making it sound natural, because anyone could go and have ChatGPT or Claude help you write stuff, but it sounds very robotic, even if you tell it to humanize it. And it's getting better, but I still think you need to go in and adjust it a little bit to make it sound a lot more like, hey, this is a human that wrote this. This isn't all automated.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you keep your teams motivated? I mean, if you have 27 SDRs and they're making calls every day, like how do you keep their energy and their positivity, and like how do you run your teams to, keep everything humming?
It's a challenge, that's for sure. What we've done is as the team grew, we split up the teams into four. So we have SDR team leads who lead a smaller group of people. Then we have a team above, someone above that is kind of overseeing everything. And then we created a competition out of it. So they're competing against each other. So there's a
That's
little bit of
good.
morale, but there's also some healthy competition, with the end goal, of course, of booking meetings for the clients. There's also some incentives. So like the longer the client stays on, the more money they get. So yeah, there's some, I think in sales, a lot of it comes down to money. Uh,
Yeah.
Most people, even if they won't admit it, a big reason why they're working at a particular company is like they want to make more money, and that's okay.
Yeah, you want your salespeople driven to achieve and make money. I mean, that's a good motivation, and it's like intrinsic drive. So yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Um, but it's got to be tough running your company because I see what our VPs of sales go through, and like how are you able to hold on to your people? Do you have a high turnover rate, or you have a good like do you have what do you do around that to like keep people that you want to stay?
Yeah, actually, we have a really good in terms of the SDRs, very solid in terms of the retention. Now, not everyone will stay on. Just like, hey, at some point, performance becomes an issue. It's like they may be good people, but at the end of the day, we need to see results. Now, it's a little bit of a challenge of figuring out if when we're working with a client, is it an SDR issue? Is it our client and their product market fit issue? Is it a target? So like we try to figure that stuff out. But no, one of the main things is like, look, I want it. We don't always figure this out, but we want to when we hire somebody, we want to make sure they're going to be making more money working with us than their previous role. That's one thing. Is like, look, if we can provide flexibility, we're fully remote, um, and they can make more money, that typically is a win. And then there's incentives in place for them to make more money with time.
And is it hard managing a remote team? Like what kind of lessons that you could share with other our viewers who are also CEOs and entrepreneurs and like what have you learned? You're a fully remote organization and
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard.
yeah,
It is very hard. Um, Communication is super important. So I tell everybody like it's okay, over communicate. We're all remote. You can't turn to your neighbor and tell them something. So, using Slack or email or we're on calls, like you got to be detail oriented. You got to make sure you communicate. That's one thing. Um, the other thing is like, yeah, there's people all over, uh, in different states, in different countries. And so I haven't been able to meet everybody, fortunately, even though I've been working with some people for a few years. Now, I was also there's tends to be some hubs in certain cities. Like today, I'm going out to dinner with like 10, 12 people on my team, and that's really great. So you're able to see people in person, get to know them a little bit better. So it's not all behind a computer screen. But yeah, in general, it's tough. I think there's pros and cons to working remotely and being in the office. Um, you know, there's commutes, and then there's which people want to avoid. But in the office, I'd have to say you're probably a little bit more productive.
yeah
What's your experience been?
we have offices around the world, so by default, in some ways, you're remote from that perspective, and we're mostly remote as well. We still have offices in Bulgaria and Sofia. Um, we hire a lot of senior people and it works out, but when we hire newer, younger in their career people, it's a lot harder. And and yeah, I agree. Communication is really key, but then you miss some of that. Like we just onboarded a bunch of new people here in January, and you see a new face on a group call, and you can say hello, but if we were in the same headquarters, you'd be run into them and just kind of like really get to know them, and so
Mm-hmm.
there's like those missed opportunities, but um for senior people it's great, like yeah, and there's a huge benefit from working from home, and then the ability to have talent anywhere. Like we do a lot of we have a big team in Japan, and we used to only be in Tokyo, and so we'd hire only people in Tokyo, which of course is a huge city, but we got amazing talent that are in the mountains of Japan, or like amazing talent, but they love skiing, and they're not moving, and they are in a smaller town. So there are pros and cons, and I'm a proponent of it, and good tech matters. Like we have a product called Slingshot that really keeps us informed of like what all the teams are doing, and to be data driven, and so that's helped us a lot. But I do miss our headquarters. I do miss our headquarters.
Yeah. And that is one great thing is there is more and more with remote or hybrid being more and more popular. There's a lot more tools geared towards that. So it's helpful whether it's tracking or calls or I don't know. There's just so many different tools that you can use now with a remote team to help, right?
Yeah, yeah. Now, would you say you're a data-driven CEO? Do you use a lot of metrics, and how do you view that?
I think it's important in terms of your decision making. Now, I wish I had more at my disposal, right? I think setting things up to track is always a challenge in an ever changing space. But it's I don't think it's smart to start making decisions if you don't have any data to back it up, right? You have to have some type of trends like, hey, when we work with in X industry or X types of clients, we typically do better or we do worse, things like that, or like company size, things like that. Because ultimately, if it's a bigger company, they've been around longer, they're more established, they have a brand, and that will make our job easier. So if you start picking up on those things on, let's just say, the types of clients you're working with, it'll help make your decisions a lot better or a lot easier moving forward if you have that type of data. So yeah, any data I can use to my advantage, certainly. Otherwise, you're kind of making decisions off your gut instinct.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a big believer in data driven, but even with that said, don't discount that intuition and gut feeling. So don't want to make all your decisions on that. You should make, always be founded in data. Um, and also like researching your company for this call, I saw that a lot of your case studies, I don't know if it's really representative in your entire customer base, but you do a lot of work with software companies and financials. It looks like a lot, financials and software. Do you find that different working with a financial company as a customer versus a software company? Is there similarity or differences?
Um, no, everyone like honestly, what gives us a lot of success is a client that has a unique product offering. It really helps us because otherwise, if you just have something else that stands out, or let's just say you have a CRM, but then you've got HubSpot and Salesforce ahead of you, like it just makes the job so much harder. So if you have a company that has something unique or they're a leader in the space, it makes our job way easier.
Oh
Or if
yeah.
they've been, yeah. But actually, the financial service, it just kind of came out naturally. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to focus here. It was like we started doing well with one, then we got a referral to another, then they started doing well, and just like it wasn't. It was like by accident. And but those are the types of things you can start to learn and pick up on. Like, okay, yeah, we're doing pretty good in this space. Let's keep targeting others in the. It's a huge space, right? Financial services, it's massive. So
Yeah, and I guess your team too, and your company starts learning the domain and
100%.
lingo, and what's going on in that industry, so that probably helps as well.
Definitely. Yeah, you hit that one on the head. Yeah, because then you could start understanding what's important to these types of people, the talking points. Yeah, you can speak their lingo. It's really helpful.
So, is there a difference working with VC or PE backed companies versus non? Do you see a difference there?
The main difference is they have more funding, so they can allow it to go on longer to play out, right? They can allow that sales pipeline to build up, and not everyone their sales cycle could be a few weeks to sometimes even over a year. So with having more funding, they will allow the campaigns to play out longer. That's the biggest thing we notice. Whereas someone who's bootstrapped, they might be looking for results much quicker.
Yeah. So, and I guess they may or may not have product market fit. You probably deal with, if in your startup world, I'm assuming, with more companies that don't have product market fit. Is that true? Or and does that
Yeah,
change how you approach things?
yeah. So it's true because otherwise, yeah, they'd be a lot bigger. They may have something cool and unique that's new to the market, but they're not quite sure how it's going to be received. Another big one is they may be really well established in another part of the world, such as Europe, and they're trying to break in the United States. So they know things work in Europe, but then they're not quite sure how it's going to be received in the United States. So we'll help them with that.
And how do you? I guess you probably work with AEs or account execs. Um, at your client company, like you're handing off to them. Is that, and so there's like a probably a good relationship, or is that how how you do do your service?
Yeah, the closer we can work with them, the better off we'll be, right? The tighter that partnership is. So if we can communicate with them and we understand, hey, they want these types of qualifying questions, they want meetings booked at this hour or these types of titles. So like the closer we can work together, the better off it'll be. And that, yeah, it could be an AE, depending on the size of the company. An AE, it could be a VP of sales. It depends who's taking those calls.
Yeah, one of the things we learned is that when a lead comes in, if you call them within the first 5 minutes, you have like a 90% better chance of getting a meeting. And then every hour and even 24 hours later, it goes down to like the opposite. You have like a 10% chance of like having a, getting, talking to them before you start getting
Yeah.
boosted. Is that
Speed to
your
lead.
experience or?
Yeah, so there's even tools now where so a lot of companies will have a little chat bot right on the bottom right of their website, so you can ask it questions. But there's also new tools where you can actually just jump on a call right away from that chat bot. It'll go to somebody live, and it could be like a sales rep or um, whatever the function may be. And it's like, well, it's pretty cool. I'm actually just jumping on a call right away with somebody rather than having to talk to through chat. You don't know where that person is. You don't know how knowledgeable they are, things like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So is there anything I didn't ask you that you might want to share with our audience?
I could talk about this for a long time. I go on these podcasts. A lot of it's around sales development. It's a huge need. Every company needs sales, right? The question is how to go about it, right? Are you going to conferences? Are you setting like webinars? Are you doing outbound? Like, what are you doing to drive your traffic? And outbound is just one of those channels. It's a piece of the pie. Um, but a lot of it, there's something called outbound led inbound. So a lot of your outbound can pique curiosity. They may start checking out your website, checking out your LinkedIn, and then they may come inbound that way. So I do think it's a very powerful channel. And I think it's something all companies should run, but I don't think it's what you should 100% rely on, because an inbound lead is going to be a lot better than a cold outbound. So the question is, how do you go about driving that awareness and getting them to come inbound? Because their timing is going to be a lot better. They're already a little bit knowledgeable on your company.
Yeah, I mean, this is like going back 2 or 3 years, but like Gartner has statistics that like 67% of the buying journey happens before they even interact with anybody, in the company. So they're doing their research, they're and so by the time you get to engage with them, they're already really far along in the sales
Mm-hmm.
cycle. But yeah, outbound is really important, as you said, as part of a sales and marketing mix, and it's not easy. I mean, it is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
Yeah, one thing we're noticing is a lot of companies are starting to do their research now using something like ChatGPT and um, some of these AI tools, because it's giving you like advanced research pretty quick. Yeah, you could use Google, but now it's like, have you ever typed in something into ChatGPT and it'll give you the top 10 or
yeah,
top
it's
15
amazing.
companies? And it's like, oh wow, okay. Now companies are starting to have to consider this. Like, what does the AI, what are they pulling up? What are they prioritizing based off the search? Um, so that is, I think, changing in terms of how companies are focusing on their SEO and driving inbound leads.
Yeah, we told our team to do just that. Make sure we're, so, how are we showing up in all these different LLMs and making sure that we're understanding how to show up the right way in the answers. Yeah, everything's changing a lot now, and very interesting times.
Yeah.
What if someone wanted to? How can people reach you, or they wanted to learn more about you, get in touch with you? You want to share some how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. So the two best ways would be to go to the website, levelupleads.io, or on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I'm pretty active. I'm posting just about every day. Just my first name, John, John, my last name, Carsant, Karsant. I think I'm the only one, so you won't get confused with that others. You can connect with me and happy to chat with you.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you, John, and yeah, congratulations on making it this far in business. And sounds like you've got a great team there. And so, uh, thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, I've got 30 more years to catch up to you.
Yeah, if you want that, if you want that.
Thanks for having me on, dude.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.